I am going to tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. Most of you will never get rich, and it has nothing to do with your intelligence, your work ethic, or the opportunities available to you. It has everything to do with 5 specific mental patterns you carry with you every single day, patterns so deeply embedded that you mistake them for rational thought. I know this because I spent decades watching people fail to build wealth while believing they were doing everything right. I also know this because I carried some of these patterns myself, and they cost me years before I identified them and cut them out. The question is not whether you want to be rich. Everyone wants to be rich. The question is whether you are willing to examine the exact mechanisms by which you prevent yourself from becoming rich. This is not about motivation. This is not about belief. This is about identifying the specific cognitive errors that keep you locked in place while you convince yourself you are moving forward. Let me be clear about what I mean by rich. I am not talking about comfort. I am not talking about a good salary or a nice house or the ability to take vacations. I am talking about the accumulation of significant capital, the kind that changes what is possible in your life and the lives of those around you. I am talking about wealth that creates options, that removes constraints, that allows you to operate from a position of strength rather than need. Most people never get there. They spend 40 years working, saving, planning, and they end up with a retirement account and a mortgage that is almost paid off. They call this success. It is not success. It is survival with better furniture. Now, here is what most people believe about why they are not rich. They believe it is a matter of circumstances. They believe they need more time, better timing, the right connections, a lucky break, or a different starting point. They believe that rich people had advantages they did not have, that the game is rigged, that the system favors those who are already wealthy. They believe that if they just keep working hard, keep saving, keep making smart decisions, eventually the wealth will come. They treat wealth accumulation like a linear process. Input effort, receive proportional output, repeat until rich. This is the model most people operate under. It sounds reasonable, it feels fair. It aligns with what we are taught about work and reward. And it is completely wrong. I watched this play out thousands of times. I watched engineers at Apple who were brilliant, hardworking, dedicated, who put in 60-hour weeks and produced exceptional work, and who left the company 20 years later with a decent savings account and nothing more. I watched entrepreneurs who started businesses, who sacrificed everything, who followed all the conventional advice about building a company, and who ended up with nothing or worse than nothing. I watched investors who studied the markets, who diversified their portfolios, who made careful, rational decisions, and who generated returns that barely kept pace with inflation. These were not stupid people. These were not lazy people. These were people who believed they were doing what it takes to get rich, and they were wrong about what it takes. The model they were following was not just incomplete, it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth is actually created. Here is the first thing that keeps you from getting rich. You are optimizing for the wrong variable. You are optimizing for income when you should be optimizing for equity. You are optimizing for stability when you should be optimizing for asymmetric upside. You are optimizing for incremental progress when you should be optimizing for step function change. Every day you make 100 small decisions based on what will improve your immediate situation, and every one of those decisions moves you further away from significant wealth. Let me explain what I mean by this. When you take a job, you evaluate it based on salary, benefits, job security, work-life balance, and career progression. These are the variables you optimize for. You negotiate for a higher salary. You look for companies with good benefits. You avoid situations that feel risky or unstable. You plan a career path that moves you up a ladder in predictable increments. This is what everyone tells you to do. This is what seems rational. And this is exactly how you guarantee that you will never be rich. The reason is simple. Salary is capped. No matter how high your salary goes, it is still trading time for money at a defined rate. You can increase the rate, but you cannot break the ceiling. Even if you become a senior executive making $500,000 a year, you are still just an employee with a high salary. You are not building wealth. You are building a comfortable lifestyle that depends entirely on your continued employment. The moment you stop working, the money stops coming. That is not wealth. That is expensive dependency. Equity is different. Equity is ownership. Equity gives you a claim on the value created by an enterprise, and that value can grow exponentially in ways that salary never can. Equity in a company that goes from 10 million to $1 billion in valuation creates wealth. Salary does not create wealth. It creates income. Most people confuse these two things. They think a high income makes them rich. It does not. It makes them high earners, which is not the same thing. But here is the problem. Equity requires risk. Equity requires giving up stability. Equity requires accepting that you might get nothing. And this is where the first mental pattern reveals itself. You are not actually willing to take the risk required to get rich. You say you are. You believe you are. But when the moment comes to choose between a certain salary and an uncertain equity position, you choose the salary. Every time. You rationalize this choice. You tell yourself you have bills to pay, responsibilities, a family to support. You tell yourself you will take the risk later, when you have more saved, when the timing is better, when the opportunity is clearer. You never do. The timing is never better. The opportunity is never clearer. You just get older and more risk-averse and more locked into the lifestyle your salary supports. This is the first thing that keeps you from getting rich, and it operates invisibly because you have convinced yourself that you are being responsible, prudent, and smart. Chapter 2. The second thing. You confuse motion with progress. You are busy, relentlessly, exhaustingly busy. You arrive early. You stay late. Your calendar is a Tetris game of back-to-back meetings. Your inbox is a Hydra answer, 50 emails, 70 appear. You pride yourself on responsiveness, on being the person who gets things done, on your work ethic. You are in constant motion. And you believe this motion is building something. It is not. Let me be precise about what I mean. You are confusing activity with advancement. You are confusing effort with effectiveness. You are confusing being busy with building wealth. These are not the same thing. They are not even in the same category. I have watched this pattern destroy more wealth-building potential than almost anything else. Not because motion is bad, motion is necessary, but because people substitute motion for the specific, uncomfortable actions that actually create wealth. They work frantically on the wrong things, then wonder why a decade of exhausting effort produced nothing but burnout and a modest 401k. The pattern looks like this. You spend 60 hours a week making someone else's company more valuable. You are exceptional at it. You deliver projects ahead of schedule. You mentor junior employees. You optimize processes. You are indispensable, which means you have made yourself into the perfect employee and the perfect person who will never get rich. Because here is what you are not doing during those 60 hours. You are not building equity in anything you own. You are not creating systems that generate value without your direct labor. You are not developing asymmetric opportunities where your upside is exponentially larger than your downside. You are not positioning yourself to capture the value you create. You are working extraordinarily hard to make other people wealthy. The shareholders, the founders, the partners, they own the equity, they own the systems, they own the asymmetric upside. You own a salary and the promise of a year-end bonus if the numbers hit. But I am building my career, you say. I am developing skills and relationships and reputation. That has value. It does, but not the kind of value that makes you rich. Career capital is real, skills are real, reputation is real. But they are inputs, not outputs. They are necessary conditions, not sufficient ones. You can have all three in abundance and still retire at 65 with $2 million in savings that you are terrified to spend because you know it has to last 30 years and you have no other source of significant income. That is not wealth. That is anxiety with a better investment portfolio. The people who get rich do something different. They take their career capital, their skills, relationships, and reputation, and they deploy it into equity. They use it to build ownership. They convert it from impressive credentials into actual claims on growing value. You do not do this. You hoard your career capital like a dragon hoarding gold, polishing it, protecting it, never spending it on anything that might jeopardize it. You take the safe project. You stay at the prestigious company. You accept the promotion with the better title and the incremental salary increase. You make 100 small decisions that preserve your career capital while ensuring it never transforms into actual wealth. I need you to understand what this looks like in practice, because I have seen it play out identically in hundreds of careers. You are a senior engineer at a major tech company. You are brilliant. You earn $400,000 a year. You have been there 8 years. You have stock grants, but they vest slowly, and you spend them as they vest paying down the mortgage, funding the kids' college accounts, upgrading the car. Reasonable decisions. Responsible decisions. A former colleague contacts you. She left 3 years ago to join a startup. It is past the crazy risk phase. They have product market fit, revenue, a clear path to profitability. They want you to lead engineering. The salary is $250,000. The equity package is 1.5% of the company. You run the numbers. You think about it seriously. You talk to your spouse. And you say no. You say no because $250,000 is a pay cut. You say no because startups are risky. You say no because you are up for promotion to principal engineer next year. You say no because your current company is stable and your current role is comfortable, and you have built relationships and credibility that would take years to rebuild somewhere else. These reasons sound rational. They are not rational. They are rationalizations. Here is the actual calculation you should have run. Your current company grants you $100,000 in stock annually. It is a mature company. Over the next 5 years, if everything goes well, maybe that stock appreciates 50%. You make an extra $50,000. Total 5-year compensation, roughly $2. $5 million in salary plus stock. The startup is offering 1.5% of a company currently valued at $100 million. Your equity is worth $1.5 million on paper, but it is illiquid and contingent. If the company fails, it is worth $0. If the company succeeds modestly and gets acquired for $300 million in 5 years, your 1.5% is worth $4.5 million. If it succeeds dramatically and reaches a $1 billion valuation, your stake is worth $15 million. The expected value calculation is not even close. Even with a significant probability of failure, the asymmetric upside makes the startup the obviously correct financial decision. But you do not make the obviously correct financial decision. You make the decision that feels safe. You make the decision that preserves your current motion, your meetings, your projects, your trajectory toward principal engineer. You confuse continuing your current motion with making progress toward wealth. 5 years pass. You make principal engineer. Your salary increases to $500,000. You are proud of this. You should be. It represents real achievement. The startup gets acquired for $400 million. Your former colleague, who took the risk you refused, walks away with $6 million after taxes. You are still trading time for money. She owns a meaningful amount of capital that will compound for the rest of her life. But that is survivorship bias, you say. What about all the startups that fail? What about all the people who took the risk and ended up with nothing? Fair question. Wrong conclusion. Yes, many startups fail. Yes, many people who take equity over salary end up with less money than they would have made staying in their comfortable corporate job. This is true. But the people who get rich are all in the category of people who took the risk. None of them, not one, got rich by optimizing for salary and stability. The failure rate among risk takers is high. The success rate among people who avoid risk is 0. You are optimizing to avoid the downside. You need to be optimizing for the upside. And here is what makes this particularly destructive. You are not even avoiding the downside effectively. You think your corporate job is safe. It is not safe. Your division can be reorganized. Your company can be acquired. Your role can be automated or outsourced. The industry can shift, and your skills can become obsolete. You have downside risk whether you accept it or not. You simply are not getting paid for it. When you stay in the corporate job at $400,000, instead of taking the startup equity, you are not choosing safety over risk. You are choosing a capped upside with significant downside over an uncapped upside with similar downside. You are making the worst possible trade. But it does not feel that way. It feels like you are being responsible. It feels like you are protecting what you have built. It feels like you are making progress because you are so deeply, relentlessly busy. You are in motion, constant motion, exhausting motion, and you are not moving toward wealth. You are moving in place, like a hamster in a wheel, expending enormous energy to stay exactly where you are. The brutal truth is this: most of the work you do does not matter for wealth creation. It matters for your performance review. It matters for your reputation. It matters for your sense of professional identity. But it does not create wealth for you. Wealth is created by ownership, by equity, by building or acquiring assets that appreciate independent of your labor. Everything else is just motion. I am not saying effort does not matter. I am not saying skill does not matter. I am saying that effort and skill, divorced from ownership, produce only income. And income, no matter how large, is not wealth. You can work 60-hour weeks for 40 years and end up comfortable. Or you can work 60-hour weeks for 5 years building something you own, then work whatever hours you choose for the next 35 years while your equity compounds. The amount of effort is the same. The motion is the same. The exhaustion is the same. The outcome is completely different. But you will not make this trade. You will continue to optimize for motion. You will continue to confuse your packed calendar with progress. You will continue to believe that your relentless busyness is building towards something. And in 20 years, you will be senior vice president or partner or managing director, earning $800,000 a year, still trading time for money, still busy, still in motion, still not rich. Chapter 3. You treat time like it is infinite. You are working yourself to death, not metaphorically, literally. You are spending the finite resource of your life, your time, your energy, your cognitive capacity, as if you had an unlimited supply. You are making decisions about your career, your investments, your business ventures, as if you had centuries to compound returns. You do not. This is the third mental pattern that prevents wealth accumulation. You have completely inverted the relationship between time and money. I have watched this pattern destroy more wealth-building opportunities than market crashes or bad investments. I have watched brilliant people spend 5 years climbing a corporate ladder that leads nowhere, telling themselves they are building experience. I have watched entrepreneurs spend 3 years perfecting a product before launching, burning through their savings while the market moves on without them. I have watched investors sit on cash for years, waiting for the perfect opportunity that never arrives, while inflation silently erodes their purchasing power. They all make the same fundamental error. They treat money as scarce and time as abundant. The reality is precisely the opposite. Money is infinite. It is a human invention, a social construct, a number in a database that can be created, destroyed, and multiplied without theoretical limit. Time is the only truly scarce resource you possess. You have perhaps 40 productive years if you are lucky. More likely, you have 20 or 30 years when you have the energy, health, and mental clarity to build something significant. Every year you spend in the wrong job is not a minor setback. It is a permanent loss of your most valuable asset. You cannot get it back. You cannot buy it back. You cannot borrow more of it. Let me be specific about what this looks like in practice. You are 32 years old. You have been at your company for 6 years. You are good at your job. You have been promoted twice. You are now making $180,000 a year. You have been approached by a former colleague about joining a startup. The salary would be $120,000. The equity would be 0.8%. You run the numbers. The startup would need to be worth $150 million for your equity to equal what you would make in salary over the next 2 years at your current job. You decline the offer. You tell yourself you are being rational. You are optimizing for certainty. You will build more savings, more security. Perhaps in a few years, when you are in a better financial position, you will take that risk. This is the time inversion error in its purest form. You are treating 2 years of your life as if they are less valuable than $120,000. You are treating your early 30s, the period when you have maximum energy, minimum obligations, and the greatest capacity to absorb risk, as if it were an unlimited resource you can spend on incremental salary increases. The correct calculation is not whether the startup equity will equal your foregone salary. The correct calculation is whether this opportunity represents the highest value use of these specific 2 years of your life. Because you will never get these 2 years back. You will never again be 32 with this specific combination of skills, energy, and freedom from obligations. In 5 years, you will be 37. Perhaps you will have children. Perhaps you will have a mortgage. Perhaps you will have aging parents who need support. Perhaps you will have health issues. Perhaps you will simply have less energy, less tolerance for 80-hour weeks, less willingness to sleep on a friend's couch while you build something. The startup might fail. Probably it will fail. But the question is not whether it will fail. The question is whether spending 2 years building something, learning how early-stage companies work, forming relationships with founders and investors, and positioning yourself for the next opportunity is worth more than 2 years of incremental career progression in a large company. You are spending your 30s accumulating salary when you should be spending them accumulating at-bats. I see this pattern most clearly in people's approach to learning and skill acquisition. They will spend 5 years becoming an expert in a specific technology or methodology. They will invest thousands of hours mastering a domain. Then the market shifts. The technology becomes obsolete. The methodology is replaced. And they are starting over, 5 years older, with expertise that no longer commands a premium. They made a reasonable bet that their investment of time would compound. But they failed to account for the fact that their time was the investment. When the expertise became worthless, they did not just lose the value of the expertise. They lost 5 years. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They do not optimize for becoming the best at something that takes years to master. They optimize for being early to things that will matter. They would rather be mediocre at something that is about to become valuable than expert at something that is already mature. This is why wealthy people move faster than you think they should. It is not because they are reckless. It is because they have correctly valued time as their scarcest resource. They know that being 6 months early to an opportunity is worth more than being 6 months more prepared. You see a successful founder and think, they got lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. You are half right. They were in the right place at the right time. But they were there because they moved when you were still preparing. They launched when you were still planning. They hired when you were still perfecting your pitch deck. They did not have more time than you. They simply treated the time they had as if it were actually scarce. Let me give you a concrete example. In 1996, 2 Stanford PhD students had an idea for a better search engine. They could have spent 3 more years in academia, publishing papers, building their reputations, waiting until they had more experience and more credentials before starting a company. They did not. They dropped out. They launched. They called it Google. Were they perfectly prepared? No. Did they have everything figured out? No. Did they know exactly how to build a multi-billion-dollar company? Of course not. But they understood that the opportunity cost of waiting was higher than the risk of starting before they were ready. Most people invert this calculation. They wait until they are ready. They wait until they have more savings. They wait until they have more experience. They wait until the conditions are perfect. They are still waiting. You are doing this right now with something in your life. There is an opportunity in front of you, a company you could start, a job you could take, an investment you could make, a skill you could learn, and you are waiting. You are telling yourself you need 6 more months. You need to save a bit more money. You need to learn a bit more. You need conditions to be slightly better. You are wrong. The conditions will never be better than they are right now. 6 months from now, you will be 6 months older. The opportunity will have moved forward without you, or it will have disappeared entirely, or someone else will have taken it. This is not an argument for recklessness. This is not an argument for taking every opportunity that presents itself. This is an argument for correctly valuing time as your scarcest resource and making decisions accordingly. When you are evaluating an opportunity, you should not be asking, is this guaranteed to work? You should be asking, is this the highest value use of the next 2 years of my life? When you are deciding whether to start a company, you should not be asking, do I have enough savings to survive for 2 years if this fails? You should be asking, will I learn more and create more option value by spending 2 years building this company than by spending 2 years doing anything else? When you are considering an investment, you should not be asking, what is the probability this will succeed? You should be asking, if this succeeds, will it have mattered that I was early, even if I had to wait 3 years for the outcome? The mental shift is subtle but complete. You stop treating time as infinite and money as scarce. You start treating money as infinite and time as scarce. This changes everything. It changes how you negotiate. You stop trading time for marginally higher salary. You start trading salary for equity, for learning opportunities, for access to networks that create future options. It changes how you invest. You stop trying to avoid all downside risk. You start seeking asymmetric opportunities where time is your advantage, where being early and being patient creates compounding returns that late entrants cannot replicate. It changes how you build skills. You stop trying to become the best in the world at something. You start trying to become good enough at multiple things that compound together in unusual ways. Most importantly, it changes your relationship with failure. When you treat time as infinite, failure is devastating. You wasted years. You have to start over. The cost is unbearable. When you treat time as scarce, failure is information. You learned what does not work. You formed relationships. You created options. You moved faster than the people who are still preparing. You will not make this shift. Most of you will continue to spend your most valuable years accumulating salary, accumulating credentials, accumulating expertise in domains that may not matter in 5 years. You will wake up at 45 and realize you spent 20 years optimizing for the wrong variable. A small number of you will read this and feel something shift. You will look at the opportunity in front of you differently. You will stop waiting for perfect conditions. You will start moving. That group, the ones who correctly value time, will build wealth. The rest of you will build careers. Chapter 4. Believing expertise protects you. You believe that knowledge is the answer. You believe that if you just learn enough, study enough, become expert enough in your domain, the wealth will follow naturally. You are wrong. This is the fourth pattern I have watched destroy intelligent people for 40 years. They confuse expertise with leverage. They confuse being the best with being positioned to capture value. They spend decades becoming world-class at something, and then they are shocked, genuinely shocked, when someone less knowledgeable but better positioned captures all the economic value their expertise creates. Let me be precise about what I mean. Expertise is necessary. I am not arguing against competence. Apple would not exist without deep technical knowledge. The Macintosh required world-class engineering. The iPhone required profound understanding of user experience, hardware integration, industrial design. But expertise alone does not create wealth. Expertise creates value. Wealth comes from capturing that value through ownership and positioning. I watched this pattern play out hundreds of times at Apple. Engineers who were genuinely brilliant, people who understood processor architecture or display technology or battery chemistry at a level that maybe 50 people in the world could match. They spent 15 years becoming that good. They were irreplaceable in a technical sense. They retired with stock options worth maybe $2 million if they were lucky. Good money, comfortable retirement, not wealth. Meanwhile, the venture capitalists who funded Apple in the early days, people who could not write a single line of code, who did not understand the technical details of what we were building, made 50 million, 100 million, more. You will say this is unfair. You will say the engineers created the value and the investors just provided capital. You are right. It is unfair. It is also irrelevant. The investors owned equity in the company at the point of maximum risk and minimum valuation. The engineers received salary and options after the company had already been de-risked and scaled. The investors were positioned to capture asymmetric returns. The engineers were positioned to be compensated fairly for their time and expertise. Fair compensation for expertise and wealth creation are not the same thing. Here is what happens. You spend your 20s and 30s becoming genuinely excellent at something. Software engineering, product design, marketing, whatever. You make yourself valuable. Companies want to hire you. Your salary increases. You feel successful because you are being rewarded for your expertise. But you are being rewarded with income, not equity. You are being paid to use your expertise to build someone else's asset. The better you get, the more valuable you become to them, not to yourself. Then, when you are 40 or 45, you finally have enough expertise and credibility to start your own company. You finally have the knowledge and the network and the reputation. You are finally ready. But now you have a mortgage. You have children in private school. You have a lifestyle that requires $400,000 a year to maintain. You have maybe 15 or 20 working years left before you want to retire. The risk tolerance you needed at 25, when you had nothing to lose and 40 years to recover from failure, is gone. You needed to take the big swing when you were ignorant and had nothing. Instead, you took it when you were knowledgeable and had everything to lose. You optimized the sequence backwards. I see this pattern constantly in people who email me asking for advice. They are 38 years old. They have spent 15 years at Google or Facebook or Goldman Sachs. They are senior directors or managing directors. They make $600,000 a year. They have finally learned enough to build something themselves. And they are trapped. They cannot afford to start over at startup salary. Their expenses have scaled with their income. Their identity is tied to their title and their compensation. They have spent 15 years becoming an expert employee, and now the expertise itself is the cage. They will tell themselves they are being strategic. They will tell themselves they are waiting for the right opportunity. They will tell themselves they need to save a bit more first, get the next promotion, wait until the kids are in college. They will never do it. Because expertise without positioning is a trap. The better you get at working within someone else's structure, the harder it becomes to build your own. Let me give you a different example. There was a designer at Apple, genuinely talented, understood user experience at a profound level. He spent 12 years working on products that generated billions in revenue. He was well compensated. He had status. He had impact. He left to start his own design consultancy. He was going to leverage his expertise and his Apple reputation into his own business. He was going to capture value for himself. 5 years later, he had a nice small business. Maybe 20 employees. Maybe 3 million in revenue. He was making about the same as he made at Apple, but now with all the stress and risk of running a business. He had expertise, he had reputation, he had clients, he did not have leverage, he did not have a scalable asset. He traded employment for self-employment. He was still trading his time and expertise for money, just with more overhead and less security. That is not wealth creation. That is expensive independence. Now compare that to the entrepreneurs I knew who started companies in their 20s. They were not experts. They did not have deep domain knowledge. They barely knew what they were doing. But they owned 100% of something at the beginning. They were positioned to capture the full upside of whatever value they created. When they needed expertise, they hired it or partnered for it. They did not wait to become the expert themselves. Some of them failed. Most of them failed. But the ones who succeeded built real wealth because they had ownership and positioning from day one. And they added expertise as they went, rather than adding ownership after they had expertise. You have been taught that the path is learn, then do. Become an expert, then build something. Reduce risk through knowledge, then take the leap. This is precisely backwards for wealth creation. The path is claim ownership, then develop expertise. Take the position, then grow into it. Lock in the equity when it is cheap, then build the value. Because here is what you do not understand. Expertise is a commodity in a way that positioning is not. There are thousands of world-class engineers. There are thousands of brilliant marketers. There are thousands of exceptional designers. They are all competing for similar roles, similar compensation, similar opportunities. There is only one person who owns 25% of a specific company at the seed stage. There is only one founding team. There is only one set of early investors who get the lowest valuation. Positioning is scarce. Expertise is merely rare. You can hire expertise. You can buy it on the market at relatively predictable prices. A great engineer costs $300K to $500K per year. A world-class designer costs similar. You can acquire expertise with money. You cannot buy positioning after the fact. You cannot purchase equity in a successful company at seed stage prices after it has already succeeded. The positioning is locked in at the beginning, and it determines who captures the value. I am not saying expertise is worthless. I am saying it is worth exactly what the market pays for it: a high salary, good benefits, interesting work. That is the value of expertise. Expertise does not create wealth unless it is combined with ownership and positioning. Here is the test. Ask yourself what you are optimizing for right now. Are you optimizing to become more valuable to employers? Or are you optimizing to own something that could become valuable? If you are building your resume, expanding your skills, pursuing promotions, getting better at your craft within someone else's organization. You are optimizing for expertise without positioning. You are becoming more expensive to hire and more difficult to replace. This feels like progress. It feels like you are building towards something. You are building toward a higher salary ceiling and a more comfortable cage. The people who build wealth do something different. They optimize for ownership first, then they build expertise around it. They take a position, start a company, join as a co-founder, become an early employee with significant equity, and then they develop the knowledge they need. They are worse at what they do in the beginning than the experts. They make mistakes that someone with 15 years of experience would not make. They learn slowly and expensively, but they own 20% of the company. And when that company succeeds, their 20% of something is worth more than the expert's salary could ever accumulate. You will say this is survivorship bias again. You will say, I am only seeing the successful examples. But I am seeing both. I am seeing the experts who became wealthy, and every single one of them combined expertise with ownership. And I am seeing the experts who remained comfortable but not wealthy, and every single one of them had expertise without positioning. The pattern is absolute. Expertise is how you earn a living. Positioning is how you build wealth. You need both, but the order matters, and most of you get the order wrong. You wait until you are ready. You wait until you are good enough. You wait until you know enough. And while you wait, you age. Your risk tolerance decreases. Your expenses increase. Your identity calcifies around being the expert, the senior person, the one who knows. By the time you are ready, you are no longer capable of doing what needs to be done. This is the fourth thing that keeps you from getting rich. You believe expertise protects you. It does not. It compensates you. And compensation, no matter how generous, is not wealth.